This video is brought to you by Miniature Market. Thousands of board games, discounted prices, miniaturemarket.com. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today, sadly, the king is dead. But we're going to be trying to take over influence of some factions that are fighting over the land that the king has left everybody. We're going to be looking at the Scots, we're going to be looking at, the Welsh. Today we're looking at a game called The King is Dead. This is essentially a very interesting sort of abstracted tactical card game with some cubes involved. It can be learned very quickly. Let's take a look. It's 2 to 4 players and takes about 20 to 30 minutes to play. Let me show you. I don't often show a box to a game, but I just want to show this because it seems pretty cool. Is that this thing sort of opens like a book, and inside it actually has some really cool artwork to go along with the game. Of course, the rest of the box is kind of normal where there's the stuff and the components, but behind there is a nice piece of art, and it opens like a book. Pretty cool. The King is Dead is a game where there's 8 areas. The game's 8 rounds long. At the end of each round, somebody's going to be taking over one of these regions. The blue are the Scots, the yellow are the Roman British, and the red are the Welsh. At the end of the game, the map might look something like this, and whichever of the 3 factions has the most places, whoever has the most of those cubes, in this case the yellow, let's say I had 4, and I had the most, I would win the game. So you're trying to have the most cubes of the color or faction that has the most has the control of the most areas at the end of the game. With that being understood, let's talk about how turns work. Each player in the game is going to take a deck of cards. These are all the same cards other than the color backing. And I just want to point out some interesting color choices here. Under dark lighting, these 2 colors look really similar. And then under good light conditions, actually cards of the same deck actually have some differences between some of them. Some slight dye color differences. So definitely some production possible issues and definitely some graphic design poor choices. Maybe it should have been something like yellow or something completely different from the green, because under dark it is hard to see those. So everyone's going to grab a deck of cards. Everyone's going to get 2 followers, one of randomly out of the bag, and that's pretty much starting the game. Now the board is populated. All the follower cubes are placed in this bag, and then 2 followers of the Scots here, the Welsh here, and the other ones here, and then everyone else will draw these cubes. That there's a total of 4 in each area. Like this one would have been 4 from the bag into this area here, but these areas start with 2 of their color to start with, and so that's how the game's populated at the beginning. And then there's 8 cards, 1 for each of these regions, that's put in these spots, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8. By default, these are the orders in which the turns of those countries or areas are going to get, their struggles are going to get finished, and we'll see who owns that area. So for example, this area is going to be the first one that we are sort of fighting over for a power struggle, which is this one right here. And right now it has 2 red, 1 blue, and 1 yellow. So at the beginning of the game, let's say I have these 2 as my starting followers. I don't have red yet, so I probably don't want red to win this one, maybe. Everybody has the same 8 cards. I'm going to go over what happens on a turn. On your turn, you're going to play one of you can either pass or play one of these cards. After that, it goes to the next player. They can pass or play a card, and so on and so forth. When it comes back to you, you can pass or play another card. So on a round of turns or on a specific area, you can end up playing as many cards as you want when it's your turn, anywhere from 0 to all of them. So this game is very flexible into how many cards you play. You don't want to play too many too soon because you need cards at the end of the game to try to make things happen. So on your turn, again, you're either going to pass or play a card. Once everybody has passed, this area will resolve. So let's just show you what some of these different cards do. This card, there's actually 2 of them in your deck. This allows you to grab 1 cube of any of all 3 from the pool. So all the cubes that are not on the board are out outside in a pool to grab from, and you can put them in any regions. You could put them in the same regions or different regions. So I could just add them all right here if I want to, or I could say, let's see, I want red to go here, I want yellow to go here, I want blue to go up here. You can put them pretty much anywhere, and that would be my turn. Another one you can do when it's your turn is something like this. Adjacent regions. You can take 2 cubes for one and swap it with 1 for another. So I might say, well, I'm gonna put these 2 yellow here and swap it with a red here. That's what that card would do. This one is interesting. This one allows you to change the order in which things are being resolved. For example, this is the one that we're fighting over right now, but let's say I didn't want this to happen yet. I could swap it with any of these other cards. So this card was going to be the 5th one done, but now it's the 1st, and then I put my crown on either of the ones and one of the cards, and that just tells me that nobody else can swap that card. That card's always going to be the 5th one done. So now we're talking about a different region. This one is going to be the one that's going to score now. So let's look at the rest of the cards. This one allows me to change any one cube with another cube in any region. So they could be together or they could be separate. So let's say maybe I go, I put one here and I put one over here, and that's what that card does. The last 3 cards that are played are pretty much all the same. They're just for the 3 different factions. Then what they do is when you do this, you could add 2 of the yellow cubes to any area that's adjacent to an area that's already controlled by that. So let's say this round had ended and it had this, and we're in like a new round. I could add 2 yellow cubes to any of the areas that are, adjacent to that. Once an area is done and controlled and we put the token there, we put that down and we just start again, and we see where the next place is going to be. So again, let's say this area ended, the one that's going now. It just ended right now. Red would win. These would get pulled off, put in the pool, and then this would go here. But if it was something like this and nobody won, let's say it looked like this. If nobody wins, then actually what happens is these all get pulled off, and the Saxons have come in from the ocean, and they control this region. And this is important because if any time on the board there's 4 Saxons that control 4 areas, the end game scoring and who wins is completely different. That's the whole game. You're playing no cards or a card on your turn. Once everybody passes, you go to the next one after you resolve it. And at the end of the game, as I showed you earlier, whatever faction has the most countries, whoever has the most of those is the winner. And there's a lot of different little tiebreakers and things like that. If it's tied, it would, it'd be the one that had won last and things like that. There's a lot of little tiebreakers. And the one who has the most cubes of whoever has the most, whatever faction has the most countries wins, unless the Saxons have 4. Now let's say the Saxons did sort of win. They had 4 of these. You would look and see who had the most equal sets. So I have 1 set of here, 1 set here, and this is starting a 3rd set. So I have 2 sets. If I had more sets than anybody else, I would win the game if the Saxons controlled 4. And that's pretty much how you play the Kings is Dead. Now there is an advanced variant. So there's a few things. Now, with 2 players, some of the cubes, two cubes are removed at the beginning of the game. With 4 players, you play as teams sitting across from each other, and you can't talk. And only one person wins based upon their score, but then their partner along wins with them. There's also an advanced variant called the Mordred variant, which brings in black cubes, and these move around in different ways. And if ever the black cubes wins a certain region, the game ends right then, and then we score. So even more to think about. All right, there is the King is Dead. Now, best things about this game are the game itself is very easy to understand. It's clear how you win, but it's very interesting. It has such a brain twist of this because it's essentially like an area control game, and you're playing your cards and you're trying to figure out, and you're watching other people, and you're watching who's taking over the different types of boards as the rounds go on, and you're trying to figure out, I've got to have the most of who I think is going to have the most areas, but to get the most, I have to take them off the board, which means they're less likely to win. It's this very interesting push and pull, trying to cover your bases, and then maybe, and I love how the win condition is like whoever has the most of whatever faction owns the most, but then there's those Saxons where, you know what, if you think that you don't have a good shot, like one guy's like really solidifying in blue and the other one in red, and you don't really have a whole lot of either of those, but maybe you have 1 each of all, and well, maybe you want to like use those cards to manipulate to get 4 of those towns to get run by Saxons so you can win by having sets. And I like that. Different winning conditions possible. I like that it's quick and easy. I like the way that those cards work, where you can manipulate some of the cubes, some of the areas, which ones score first and second. I really like that you can play as many or as little cards as you want during the game. So like you can throw down a power turn and do a bunch of stuff and set some things up for later, but you can have less cards later to manipulate things. Really interesting choices here. This one was, I was really impressed with how easy it is, how simple it is, and how easy those cards are to use, yet the amount of thought and depth that goes into your thinking as to what's going on, adapting to what people are doing, waiting to the end where you're really fighting over the power. Really good. Feels very different in the different player counts. 2 is like, man, mano a mano. It's back and forth. It's really crunchy. It's really hard to. It's very much an abstracted game, and with 2 players, it really does feel like a game of chess there, where you're pushing and pulling. With 3, it's interesting as well, because 1 player can kind of like solidify 1 each, but then weird things typically end up happening towards the end anyways. I think 3 is probably my favorite. And then with 4, you play as a team, you know, where you're sitting across from your teammate, 1 person will win, and then the teammate wins along with them, but you can't talk to your teammate, so you're trying to figure out what they're going for, watching what they're doing, remembering what cards they've played. Overall, very impressive game. If you like sort of an abstracted game that has some very interesting win conditions and a lot of depth, this is something that if you play this with the same people over and over, this has that sort of chess-like depth that you could play this for ages, I think. So a very solid game. The king is dead. This video was sponsored by Miniature Market's Review Corner. The Review Corner features podcasts, video, and written game reviews by gamers for gamers. Miniature Market, the online gaming superstore. Thousands of board games, discounted prices. Check them out at miniaturemarket.com.